Oh man, we're live.
We are live. Good afternoon, America, and welcome to Carry the Load's Lesson from the Front, our first episode since Carry the Load this year. This is the podcast that seeks to inspire us all to do just a little bit more for our communities and nation, and we do this by carrying the memory of those who gave everything for us. I'm your host, Todd Boating, and I'm excited to introduce tonight's guest. His name is Dan Rickert. Dan is a veteran of the United States Army Special Forces and a graduate of the United States Military Academy at West Point. Lieutenant Dan, welcome to Lessons from the Front, my friend.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it. I wish the Lieutenant Dan remark was original, but Todd, I'm not going to hold it against you. That's all right.
No, Marine Corps, okay? I mean, listen, we're good about things like that, but we make it better. We take it and make it better. So I do have to ask, though.
Sure.
Tell me that you did not get that just beat into your head coming out of the academy.
I mean, it happened a couple times. Yeah, it did happen a couple times. It was, I'll tell you a bit about my mom actually started a nonprofit in the Chicagoland area, and they held a concert every summer where Gary Sinise performed. So not only did was I called Lieutenant Dan in the military, but I actually got to meet the original Lieutenant Dan a couple of times, which was pretty fun as well.
I have heard that he is just an exceptionally kind human being.
Yeah, great person. Yeah, for sure. And somebody who's truly committed to making the world a better place for a lot of our military veterans, which is certainly I think a passion both you and I share as well.
Absolutely. So you mentioned mom. Who was Dan before the military? I mean, you went to the academy. So, I mean, my assumption is that you were straight A's, never got in any trouble. You were just, right down the middle.
I was born in Cleveland, Ohio. It's funny thinking about 4th of July this past week. On my dad's side, my family immigrated here from Germany, and actually ended up fighting in the Revolutionary War. So my son and I are sons of the American Revolution. So it's always always a special holiday for us when you think about the multiple generations of folks that took a risk on this American experiment. Grew up in was born in Ohio to two parents who came from generation of blue collar workers, firemen, police officers. And my grandfather served in the Navy. My uncle served in Vietnam. And I moved to Chicago when I was about 4 years old, and really consider the Chicagoland area my home. That's really where I grew up. But always had this big family, both my mom and dad's side. My mom had 7 brothers, my dad had 6 siblings, so I was always surrounded by family and folks that really had this attitude of service. So I always kind of knew I wanted to go into the military. At some point, I was very inspired by, my grandfather was in the Navy in World War II in Korea. It was something that was really inspiring to me. My senior year of high school was September 11th. So that certainly kind of sealed the deal on my end, knowing that we were a country about to go to war. Sort of solidified my resolve as wanting to attend the academy. Was fortunate to get into West Point. You might not believe it now, but I was a high school runner back in the day, so was able to go run at West Point, get recruited to run there.
I believe it, Dan, because at one time I was skinny.
There you go.
So
there you go.
I mean, anything's possible.
When I tell people I was a college athlete, they usually ask, football, rugby, and I say no, track and cross country. So it's all good. But no, so spent 4 years at the academy. Certainly learned a lot. Enjoyed my time there, made some incredible friendships, learned some incredible things. To be from a place like West Point is pretty neat. And I think that I've seen that certainly since I've left. The community of academy folks is pretty great. You always have somebody, whatever city you go to, which is pretty awesome. I graduated the academy.
So why West Point though? Yeah, why West Point? I mean, you had other academies, you had other. I mean, Ohio State obviously is a big draw.
Interestingly enough, my wife was recruited there, and she had a
Oh, I didn't
different
know that.
response. Yeah, she didn't go there. She didn't end up going. She was like, "No, thanks. This isn't for me." So we always joke about that. For me, it just felt it was right. There was something about the mission, the values that I think really spoke to me, and yeah, just ended up being the right place.
So you were a pretty good kid then. You didn't really do a whole lot of wayward behaviors, and you were able to really capitalize on your family's service. I mean, was it a foregone conclusion that you were going into the military at some point, or
No,
was it?
I don't think so. I certainly didn't come from a family where we were a military family where that was just assumed. And I think my mom would tell you she was certainly nervous about me going into the military. Um, so no, it was definitely, and that's something I think that's the thing I reflect on often as a parent now when people ask me, "Hey, would you let your kids serve? Would you want them to serve?" Um, I think you and I probably both know. You just tell them they can't do something, they're probably going to want to do it even more, right? So
Oh, yes. And
yeah,
if you tell
but
them they're
no,
going to do something, they're going to hate it and hate you for it. So it's
exactly.
all about reverse
No, my
psychology. That's what I've learned.
my family was very supportive the whole way, but it was certainly my decision.
So 9/11, you're in high
Yep,
school.
yep.
And I'm starting to really feel my age here because I've talked to a couple of people on this program now who were in high school when that happened. I was literally just getting out.
Yeah.
Talk to me though about, do you remember conversations between you and your friends about what was going on and what it meant? Because there was a lot of talk shortly thereafter about drafts and, we're going to war. Tell me what that was like from the perspective of a high school senior.
Yeah, it was I mean, I remembered the day, I'm sure like most Americans do. I was sitting in a high school history class watching a movie about Ho Chi Minh and the Vietnam War, ironically enough.
Interesting.
And we, I just, my mom had lost a dear friend literally 2 days earlier, had passed away. And so our family was still kind of dealing with that and processing that. And I remember just walking outside and calling my mom on a payphone, obviously because I didn't have a cell phone then, and just saying, "Hey, do you need me to come home? Like, what is going on?" My dad was traveling. My dad actually was flying that day. His plane was
Mm.
grounded, so there was just it was a moment I clear as day remember walking out my high school by our locker room and looking up at the sky and seeing this. I mean, it was a gorgeous day, right? We all remember it was a perfect blue sky where I was in Chicago, and just being like, what is going on? And sort of that sense of this is real, like something's about to happen. And I think everyone certainly processed it differently. Folks, there was definitely talks about drafts. I think my high school classmates, I mean, I graduated high school in 2002. So, in a lot of ways, going to West Point spared me 4 years of some of the really tough parts of the Iraq and Afghanistan conflict. And certainly there were tough
Mhm.
parts after that. But had a lot of friends who enlisted, and uh, and certainly saw serious combat, whether it was in the ground invasion of Iraq or onward to Fallujah and things like that. So yeah, it's a, I would say, probably a defining point for a lot of folks in our generation, for sure.
So you graduate high school 2002, go to the academy, and I'm assuming that was that a 4 year, were you on the 5 year plan there?
No, I was there for 4 years. Yep.
Well, hey, it's not an unfair question. I was in college for like 8 years, so I mean,
I nobody lauds me for my grades at West Point. I'll tell you that right now. So, but somehow I made it through onward to the Army.
So you had a lot of very interesting experiences, and I was fortunate enough to do the first leg of the East Coast relay with you from West Point, and then we went down to Ground Zero, which is the first time I've done that leg, and it was. I remember talking to you about a lot of your experiences. So you end up in the Special Forces,
Sure.
and I don't know where you want to take this, but I want to tell you what stood out to me when we talked, and that was your experience in dealing with the locals.
Yeah.
And you, if I'm not mistaken, you took some risks where you really kind of put yourself out there to win the locals over. Am I stretching the truth there, or is that accurate?
No, I would no, I think that's fair. And that's, it's I think part of what you do as a special forces officer and a special forces team, really. But I would say, one of the things that inspired me to become a Green Beret, when I was a armor cavalry officer deployed to Iraq, I saw a special forces team get invited to a mosque in a historic city in Iraq. And at the time, nobody went into there was a whole old city area that you just did not go into. And this was a bad place, right? And this special forces team had been invited by the imam to come in and take a tour of this mosque. And I was dumbfounded. I mean, it just blew my mind that, what I sort of knew of SF was, I think what a lot of people know is, the snake eaters, the tough guys. And here's a group of 6 fellows who have just bridged a cultural gap in a way that was, a battalion of Army Cav folks couldn't do. And I think from that point forward, I just saw the power in building some of these localized relationships and what that can really do once you get on the ground. So tried to really take that forward with me, as I served.
Can you go into a little more of the specifics there and set the context a little bit? I mean, when and I can try and tee it up for you a little bit. Obviously, when a lot of people think of the military, especially special forces, as just going in and it's all grit and brawn and you're just using nothing but muscle and force. But the goal at the end of the day, correct me if I'm wrong, is really to win the hearts and minds. Because if all you do is steamroll people, they're gonna resent and regret. And
Yeah, I mean,
so, what did these
yeah.
guys do that you really latched onto and said, "Man, that's the way to do it"?
Well, the motto of the Green Berets is "De oppresso libera," right? Free the oppressed, and that is born from a legacy of, since World War II, the OSS jumping in with the French Resistance, working to fight with people against evil, right? And I really do believe that that's a noble cause, right? And so I was always really impressed by the caliber of special forces soldiers that I served with, who were diplomatic when they needed to be, who were warriors when they needed to be, who could brief a local leader and then 10 minutes later brief an American general. And I think there's just, there's a couple things. One is just special forces allowed me to see the world in some really unique ways and go to places that I never would have imagined. I spent a lot of time in Africa, and there was just some real perspective there, right? Seeing one, how hard life can be for people outside the United States. My deep appreciation for the country that we live in is born really out of seeing a lot of other countries in this world, right? And that was. I think at the end of the day, a lot of people just want to live in peace and raise their family, right? And they want what's best for their kids. They want what's best for their family. So that's a great. I want the same thing, right? And that's a great point to connect on, because ultimately, I would, I used to take my grandpa's rosary with me when we would deploy. My mom bought my grandpa this rosary. I grew up Catholic, right? It's like the in places that have Islamic culture, they have prayer beads as well, right? It's like we're not so different, to be honest.
So you kind of cut out on me there. I think what I heard you say was you took your and I don't know if it was my end or your end, but you took your grandfather's rosary.
Yeah.
And then you came across the quote unquote enemy who had their own prayer beads.
Well, it wasn't necessarily the enemy per se, right? I would see, Iraqi soldiers or soldiers in countries that I would work in, or maybe a Muslim with their prayer beads. And it's like, oh, it's, we come from the same world, frankly, right? We care about the same things. So I think, what I enjoyed most about being a special forces officer was just the ability to connect with people and share what we value, understand what they value, and build trust, right, with them. Ultimately that's what helps keep people safe, helps get the mission done, et cetera.
So was there any particular incident, any particular thing that you carry with you to this day that just really stands out and you reflect on from time to time? Maybe it's something that you pass along to your kids, hey, this is something, this is a lesson that you need to learn. I was able to experience it and learn it. And here's what I want you to take from my lesson. Is there anything like that that really stands out in your mind?
Yeah, I think, you and I talked a little bit about respect. Respect is free, right? It's free to give. And I think that that's something that always stuck out to me in the military, and something I try to do. Certainly, I'm not perfect at it, but something that I really try to do is it's easy to just give people respect, no matter where you're from or they're from, or the sort of cultural nuances and differences that you have. And I think I shared with you one example of I was in a particular country and landed in that country, went to the base that I was at, met with the prefect of the particular location, who was the city leader, and just said, "Hey, I just wanted to introduce myself to you. I'm your neighbor. I'm the new guy here. And if you need anything, please just let me know." And was able to really build a relationship there in a way that, and the guy even said to me, he said, "Hey, no one's ever come and done that before. No one's come and introduced themselves to me, and just without an ask, right?" So I think that's certainly something I've carried forward, and I think
So he was
as I
expecting you to come and say, "Hey, I'm here to introduce myself, but here's what I need. Here's what I'm asking of you." And I'm hearing you say that you didn't ask him for anything. You just went in there and you built a relationship.
yeah, it was it's I'm your neighbor. We're gonna live next to each other for a while, so might as well get to know me. And I think that's yeah, it's something I even tell. It's one of the things. Ironically enough, I think that when I left the military and transitioned out of the military, kind of underestimated how important it is in the civilian world, so to speak, to really invest in building trust with colleagues too, right? Because
Yes.
particularly when in my world, when you went to a team or a special forces company, a lot of that trust is assumed, right? So you operate in a way that's like, okay, yeah, I'm the new guy, and yeah, I'm gonna have to prove myself in certain ways, but if I tell you something, we're both Green Berets, and you can take me at my word, right? And I think a lot of people struggle with that when they leave the military, because that's not how the outside world works, right?
Mm-mm.
You really do have to work on building trust. So it's something that I've come back to in the sort of seasons of my life post-military, because I think it's just as important now as it was then too.
So when you introduced yourself to him, and he, again, he, as you said, he was a little surprised by that you didn't have any ask tied to the introduction. Tell me how the relationship that obviously set things on the right foundation. How did the relationship progress as a result of a simple act of respect?
I mean, it was, we had I'm sure it wasn't perfect, and I'm sure there were, we had an understanding, right? We had a mutual understanding, and that I think went well. And, that uh, similar to sort of the episode and that I described when I was in Iraq with the special forces team. I mean, this person invited me to essentially what was the equivalent of their child's baptism in their culture, right? Asked me to come and attend the ceremony, which I was just incredibly honored to do. Brought me back, had me hold his newborn daughter, right? And this is a society where men are in one place, women are in the other, and he brings me back and has me hold his daughter with, this pride that his daughter's, meeting an American military officer. I mean, it was something that was really, really cool. So, I think being able, again, to realize that people just want the best for their family. They just want to live in peace and make sure that their children have more opportunities than they had. And being able to connect with folks on that level, I think was a pretty powerful thing.
And so, was there ever any tension that was create or that came about in that relationship?
Yeah, I mean, there were moments, sure, but any relationship with humans has that, right? And that's why you build trust, so you can fall back and work through it. Which again, I think is just an incredible learning point that I've tried to bring forward. And certainly, well, with my son's only 6, so we just have to start with, hey, respect, you know, don't talk to your grandma like that. Don't talk to your mom like that. But we'll get there. We'll get there.
That's awesome. So, do you have any idea where he is today? Were you able to stay in touch with him? Was that part of
No,
the?
no, I've not kept in touch there.
Yeah, I love this story because I really, as you described, Dan, you can actually tie it back to so many things that we deal with in the civilian world. And I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, when I transitioned out, there were things that I just took for granted, because that was the world that I came from. And, and if you told me this, then I'm going to believe it. And if I told you that, well, there's no reason to question. But there was obviously a foundation of trust that had developed out of our military service. Hey, you and I have both been through all the same bumps and bruises, so it's
Yeah,
easy. But it took me some time as well to relearn the importance of that relationship, of that respect. I
yeah,
always had respect for people as human beings, but it's got to go deeper than that. It's respect for the position they're in. It's respect for what they have to go through on a daily basis. So I think
yeah.
that's an unbelievably strong point. So my question is this: when is when is Army going to go back to their old ways and start losing to Navy again? Because you got some. I mean,
Oh man.
I'm here on a trip with some Navy guys, and they're talking about they're not happy about it.
Yeah, I lived through the dark days of Army football, so I'm quite pleased to see them back on the horse. But look, I think for anyone that's never been to an Army Navy football game, it's pretty amazing. It's a pretty amazing game, and certainly I've got very good friends from the Naval Academy. Very good friends. I mean, my grandfather again served in the Navy, so it's always a great time over a great sport. So, but anyways,
It's actually it's on my list. I haven't been.
well, I can't promise you a victory anytime soon, but what are you
Well,
gonna do?
I am attached to the Navy, so I
I
can't really
know,
pull for you. So
I know,
I just,
it's
I just,
unfortunate, but
I'm just trying to be nice to all you guys and respect all you guys. Hopefully, one of y'all is going to invite me to the game one of these years. That's all.
we'll have to get you up there at some point for sure.
So one of the things that I think is really just ingrained in our blood. We get out of the service, you can't take the service out of us, and serve in our community and serve in our country. It's just it's bred into us. What do you do to continue serving your community and your country today?
Yeah, I think well, your point about it being bred into us, I think, is from a long um, line of generations before us of men and women doing the same thing, right?
Right.
So I think there can certainly be a sense when you leave the military, and I talk to a lot of veterans that are getting out. There can certainly be a sense sometimes of like, oh, you quit, you left the fellas, you left your soldiers, you left your airmen, right? And that's unfortunate, right? Because I don't actually think that's the case, particularly now where I think there's a lot of folks that leave service and still continue to serve in a variety of ways, right? Um, for me, it's been engaging in a lot of our veteran efforts at my company or on my own, working with different veteran groups like Carry the Load, right? That to me has been an awesome responsibility and an awesome obligation that I see for me personally, and it's kind of how I continue to stay connected to that world and continue to help where I can, right? For folks that are continuing to serve and go into harm's way, and or frankly come back and are still in dealing with issues where they need some help, or they need some fellowship, they need people that they can trust, right? So for me, it's been really, engaging in the veteran community has been the place that I like to serve, or I've been sort of called to serve, I suppose.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you're, you've been in the civilian world now for what, about 6 years, 7 years?
6 years, yeah.
6 years. What have you found to be the most difficult aspect of that transition? Because it's not an easy one. And I mean, I don't care if you served in peacetime or
Sure.
wartime. It's not an easy one.
No, it's not an easy one, but the military has a lot of incredible people, right? And I think that um, while there are certainly challenges, everyone transitions at some point in their life, right? Everyone goes through a job change, a move, a life change, right? And I think the older we get, we realize that those are much more commonplace given the kind of season of life you're in. So I think like what I try to just share with folks is, one of the things my godfather said to me when I got out was like, listen, first of all, you're going to be fine. You're going to be choosing between great options. So like absolve yourself of that. Right. But really focus on what it is you want. What do you want to do? And I thought that was great advice. And I try to share that as well. I think it can be overwhelming, certainly. Luckily, there are a lot of resources out there now. Maybe sometimes too many, right? It can be confusing there's a lot
That's a great point.
A lot of VSOs out there that are doing great work. Where do I start? Right? It can be hard. The easy path is to kind of do what grab a guy's playbook that that's 2 years ahead of you, like we always do in the military, right?
Sure.
But I think
turnover folder.
Yeah, exactly, right. But unless you're really gonna, I think you just got to put in the hard yards of kind of deep reflection about, hey, what do I want? What's important to me? What do I want next? And there's no right answer, right? Like that's also the other thing is like, what I want could be different than what Todd wants. We all kind of have to balance that equation ourselves, right? So,
But I think that's great advice that your godfather gave you. And ironically, my godfather, I mean, I still wear him around my neck every day. I mean, he was a tremendous influencer for me as well. And you're going to be okay because you're picking from great options. And, we get so ingrained in the thought process of it's got to be right. Well, you know what? I took a lot of wrong turns, but they eventually put me into the right place, and a lot of that was because of experiences that
Sure.
taught me how to break my fall. If you never fall, you don't learn how to break your fall. At some point, you will fall. So I love that it's, hey, you're choosing from great options, so don't worry about it.
And I mean, I was fortunate, right? Like not everyone is maybe going to be in a position where they can choose between great options, but I think that there's, if they're not, then the next thing is like, hey, who are you engaging with and who are you asking for help, right? Because there are a lot of resources out there and there's a lot of people that can help point you at the right direction. Because grad school or college might be for some and not for others, right? Going into a job in a particular sector might be for some, not for others. Again, there's like no right answers there, but for me, having people that I trusted in the journey to kind of help me walk through that, I thought was critical. And I try to get folks to find those same sorts of folks in their life.
So I see your fly fishing gear back there. Are you a big fly fisherman?
I mean, I try. I enjoy it. Not very good at it. I'm really good at scaring fish. Took my son. I made a mistake of taking my 6-year-old fishing a couple of weeks ago, and about 30 minutes into it, he said, "Dad, why aren't you catching anything?" I was like, "Okay, I guess we're done."
Mouth of babes.
I guess we're done. Yes. Yeah.
I've done it twice in my life, and I didn't grow up fishing. In fact, every time I went, I was like, this is boring. But fly fishing is totally different. I mean, it's so therapeutic, and the water's running and the casting and I mean, it's just, I love it. I love it. So I think what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to figure out how I can get up to Colorado, and we'll take your son fly fishing. I'll make you look good. How about that?
I was going to say, if you can catch something, maybe we could do that, but I don't know. No, there's actually a great organization. We've got one of the biggest chapters out here in Colorado called Project Healing Waters. that takes disabled military veterans on fly fishing trips. So
Really?
I think a lot of folks, there's sport is a therapeutic for a lot of people, whether it's biking, running, fly fishing, whatever it is. But that's a great organization that does some of that work too.
That is awesome. I'm gonna have to look that up because again, that's the kind of thing that I love fly fishing. I've only done it a couple times, but just like I said, therapeutic. What, Dan, my friend, thank you very much for taking the time out of your day and busy schedule. I know Palantir keeps you very busy, and I really thoroughly enjoyed getting to know you and spending that time with you out on the relay. Um, you're, for those who don't know you, you are way more subdued today than I got to know you out there because I saw this guy that just, man, what a great guy, a lot of respect, but man, you had me in stitches the whole time, and so
Well, it's I felt that 20 miles from West Point that we marched, felt like I was living the Toby Keith song. Not as good as I once was, but it was good once. So
that's right.
got to keep it alive with the humor.
Absolutely, and you did. You kept me in stitches. But hey, my friend, thank you very much. Again, really do appreciate you coming on, and I've actually told a couple stories about you since that time we met because you left an impression on me, and I think that really comes back to the lesson you gave us today, which is about respect.
Oh, I
I mean,
appreciate that.
you
Yeah.
cannot overstate the importance of it. So,
No, and I
so
appreciate you, and I appreciate what Carry the Load does. I mean, for those who haven't marched in a Carry the Load event, we were really proud to be obviously corporate sponsors, but personally, as someone who marched in a couple different locations, it was a blast. I had a lot of fun just getting out there, meeting people, giving myself a reason to be sore for a couple days. It was pretty awesome. So appreciate all the hard work you guys do to spread Carry the Load's message for sure.
well, you're very welcome, and thanks for being a part of it. And we always like to ask people, at the end of this, who they're carrying. And so I'd love it if you would just tell everybody, who you continue to carry this day and carry their memory so that they don't go forgotten.
Yeah, I think Steven said it best when he said, carry all the memory of all in my case, the special forces soldiers that have gone before me and that have served and have died, and their families. I think it's critically important to remember the families of those who have served as well, and paid the ultimate sacrifice. So that's who I'm carrying today and every day, and appreciate the platform to say that.
Absolutely. Dan, thanks again. And for all of you out there, we really do appreciate you signing in. You just met with another great American. And remember, there are those who just honor Memorial Day once a year, but there are those who have to live with that 365 days a year. So my question to you is always this: who are you carrying?